Oh. Hello, chat. Hello, chat. How are we? Good evening, good morning, good evening, and good night from wherever I may find you. Welcome to the Tuesday stream. Today, as always, we are going to be reading some of the best that Reddit has to offer, and as always, it is voted for by you. These are all stories tonight that have been voted for by chat and that you guys have sent to me. So if you have some stories that you'd like me to dramatically read for you, you can always put them in the Discord that we have. We have a channel for it. In fact, do you know what? I might make a dedicated channel for it. Because I'm thinking this is going to be a long-term thing. So I might make a dedicated channel for it. But hello, chat. Hello. I can see all you lovely people. Thank you so much for coming to say hi. Tonight, chat, tonight might be a little bit jank, I'll be honest with you, because there's quite a lot of stuff that I've had to change about my streaming setup in order to be able to play Expedition 33 for you. And I'm running on the new setup today, which is kind of weird because I actually now have 2 keyboards and 2 sets of mice. Well, I say 2 sets of mice. I have 1 mouse and a trackpad and 2 keyboards that I need to use to be able to pull all of this together for you. But I digress. It is so nice to see all of you lovely people. Thank you for joining me of a Tuesday evening. Tipsy Tippet, I hope that you do. Ethan, it is always great to see you, bud. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. So, chat, like I say, tonight we are reading more Reddit stories, and these are all Reddit stories that have been voted for by you. You've sent them to me, and I have listened. And the first one, oh, Pip, welcome. Thank you very much for your 1-month membership. I appreciate you, man. And welcome to having access to all of the behind-the-scenes content, because now you can go and view my vlog series that's going to be launching there every week. That admittedly I cocked up launching this week because I was meant to launch it today, but I ended up launching it accidentally on Wednesday. So, yeah, anyway. Enough about that. You're treating us well. I'm glad that you think so, Laura. I'm very glad that you think so. So tonight, chat, like I say, we're diving into some more fan submissions. Now, the first one that I wanted to do was actually one that is a continuation of where we have been. So this is because you all said that you wanted to hear more of this. So we're diving back into r/NoSleep, and tonight I'm going to be reading I'm a search and rescue officer for the US Forest Service, and I have some stories to tell. Part 4, which is a continuation of parts 1, 2, and 3. If you haven't watched parts 1, 2, and 3, you can go back and watch the previous Reddit stream and then the one before that, because both of those, we have 1, 2, and 3 all on there for you. And actually, chat, just to say, and I do forget to do this sometimes, but I try and I go back through the Reddit posts that I've done, the Reddit reads that I've done, and chapterize them now, so that you should actually be able to search in my channel for a specific story that you want to hear. So if you search for this story in my videos, hopefully it will bring up the right Reddit read so that you guys can listen to that one, and then in that video it should have the chapter marker that tells you which story I've read. I've only done it for the last few because admittedly my time has been quite limited, but it's something that I'm keen to do going forward, is to put chapters into all of my streams so that at least if you guys want to skip through, like on a Sunday you can see where the wins of the week are and where the game actually starts, or on a Tuesday you can choose the story that you want to listen to and have it like a monster of the week kind of thing, or alternatively a choose your own story. So if you're watching this on the VOD, first of all, hello, and secondly, if that hasn't happened, it's because I forgot. But welcome. The Scamp Squad is very slowly trickling in. I can see. Welcome everyone. It's so lovely to see you. Why am I in first this time? Skype, I don't know. But you have actually dethroned yourself. You are now officially second. You don't get YouTube sometimes. No, I don't get YouTube most of the time, to be honest with you. So the crown thing is to do with chat, and it's to do with how engaged you are. Azul, welcome to being a channel member. It's great to have you here. Thank you very much for joining. Lazy Kiwi, thank you so much for those 5 gift memberships. I appreciate you. Haunted Coyote, thank you for resubscribing. Thank you for becoming a member for 5 months. Azul, you'll now have access to my vlog series, so you can go and watch that in the members section after this stream if you do so wish. I'm told it's pretty good. We're up to episode 3 at the moment. Pip, thank you so much for the $4.99. My apology for missing the last 3 streams. Lol, silly. You don't have to apologize for missing streams. No one does. No one has to apologize for missing streams. Don't worry about it, guys. Like, if you can't make a stream, it's fine. Honestly, actually, to give you one piece of feedback that I've had from a few streamers that I've spoken to about this, it's actually kinder to streamers to not remind them that you didn't come to their stream, because like most of the time streamers will like go and do their own thing, and they'll like go and, you know, they'll go make the content that they think you want to see and try and be engaging and blah blah blah. If you're like, oh sorry, I can't make it to the stream tonight, oh sorry, I can't make it to the stream, those are the comments that they remember. And I think that's true of a lot of streamers who are about my size, or maybe a little bit bigger than me, is that they will always remember the people who said, I didn't come tonight. So just bear that in mind. Bear that in mind. Sometimes, if you can't make it, don't worry. Don't sweat it, man. Like, come to the next one. Watch the VOD. It's absolutely fine. Like, you don't need to come to every single stream religiously. It's absolutely fine. Like, come to the ones that you can come to. Watch the VODs when you can't. And hit the like button. That really is the best thing that you can do, seriously. Like, at the moment, I was watching back over the because YouTube always feeds me like analytics on every stream that I do. Hello, Miss Malevolent, welcome. They give me analytics on every stream that I do and all the bits and pieces that I do. And the last stream, I think, only got 28 likes and 60 views. Which, again, like, YouTube is constantly like giving me these feels bad man, like, you know, figures, and it just never ends. It just never ends, and it will not end. Every time I look at the back end of YouTube, it's like, you're doing badly, and I'm like, oh, thanks YouTube. Guess I'll stream today. So yeah, remember, hitting the like button, leaving a comment. These are the kind of things that you can do if you want to show like your support for a stream or whatever. Just like go back and hit the like button on like videos that you've watched that you've really enjoyed, because that will tell that person to make more of that kind of content. It's one of the reasons why we're actually still doing the Reddit streams, is because you guys hit the like target on one of the streams a long time ago. So yeah, like we got 40 likes. I think we got 40 likes on one of the Reddit streams, so that's why we're still here. YouTube is that one toxic boss, except actually no, it's just that one toxic boss. It's true. It's true. YouTube very much is very much like that. But yeah, the other thing that you can do, obviously, if you want to support this channel, is if you know people who like this kind of content and want to see more of this, then tell them. Just go and recommend my footage and my footage. Go and recommend my footage to everyone. That's what they said back in the 80s when I wasn't alive. Yeah, no, watch. Tell people to watch this content. Recommend my channel to them. You know, I've got YouTube shorts. I've actually got a new short coming out tomorrow, which you guys can have a look at and see what you think. Hello, Trash 101. Welcome to the channel. Yeah, no, come watch my footage. Yeah, exactly. This is me yapping. Me yapping to my friends about you. Sadly, it hasn't caught on yet. That's fine, Miss Malevolent. It's absolutely fine. Like, people eventually will come through the door. Mike found footage ARG when? Who's to say it hasn't already happened? You know, I'm just saying, Brian the Moon. There's no one to say that it hasn't happened. Well, apart from me, actually, I'm to say it hasn't happened because it hasn't happened yet. But it might be. But it might do. We don't know. There's no way for us to know. But it could happen. So, yeah. Anyway, I have derailed this for long enough, chat. For long enough. I think it's about time. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the stream. It's good to see you. You got your bestie hooked on my Undertale playthrough. I'm so glad. I think if they're the person who I think that they are, I think they actually left a comment for me in one of the videos, which I replied to, Pip. So yeah. Like, I appreciate that, bud. I appreciate that. Also, Joe is here now, so, you know, we need to be cautious, because Joe has possibly the ability to ban even me. We care, we spare. Yeah, for real. Oh my god, yeah. Undertale was such a vibe. Undertale was such a vibe. What, you know this, Joe. We talked about this before. We talked about this. Dad is in chat. Everyone behave. Yeah, exactly. Stream Dad is here now. And unfortunately, you know, we don't talk about naughty things anymore. Because I'm so strict. No, you're not that strict. You're not that strict. Oh, look, Trash 101. You got one of Lazy Kiwi's memberships. Welcome. Welcome to being a channel member. Now you can go and watch my Vienna vlogs. Like, literally, all you have to do is come into this community and you will probably get a channel membership. Because we have some major benefactors who pay for everyone's memberships. I remember I was looking for Until Dawn playthroughs while also looking into Mike himself. It's kind of funny coincidence that I found you in the end. Man, to be fair, sometimes it just happens that way. I'm very glad that you did find this channel, Miss Malevolent, because you've been an absolute champion of the people. And yeah, honestly, I actually really liked Until Dawn. Yeah, Until Dawn mentioned. I loved playing Until Dawn. I loved playing The Quarry as well. They're so goofy. Like, for horror games, they're so goofy. And they're one of the ones that actually made me question myself about whether or not I actually liked horror. Sincerely Felix, it's good to see you, bud. Welcome to the chat. I think you've chatted before, haven't you? I seem to remember a username similar to yours. Welcome. Imogen Harris is here. Oh my goodness, you got a free membership recently, but the email doesn't say who. Thank you to whoever you are, kind stranger. Yeah, man, welcome to the world that we inhabit over here. Most of the people who watch this content are actually subscribed and members, which is kind of bonkers to think. And if you haven't already subscribed, maybe hit the subscribe button. It'd be great if you did so, because it really, really does help. There's a fire in your street. Be right back. Don't worry, mate. It's just me, spitting fire. XS Knight, thank you so much for gifting one membership. I appreciate that, bud. And to whoever that goes, enjoy the new content. Enjoy the behind-the-scenes members content. Felix is off firefighting. So I think it's time. I think it's time that we started reading. In fact, maybe there may even be some mentions of fire in here. So chat, tonight, for your delectation, as voted for by you and as sent to me by you, we're going to dive back into r/NoSleep. This was posted 10 years ago by Search and Rescue Woods, and we're diving into the fourth part of the series that we've been reading, called "I'm a Search and Rescue Officer for the US Postal." Wow, that's a Freudian slip. For the US Forest Service, and I have some stories to tell. So chat, beware, this may contain some things that you might find unagreeable. It may go into themes that you might not expect, and user discretion is advised. But please, sit back, relax, enjoy, and I will, get a nice warm cup of tea. Treat yourself. Why not? And, I will dive in for you as we join together in our reading. And so it goes. Hi guys, I'm back from my training up, and I felt I've had a lot of really interesting stories to share with you. I've gotten enough that I'm going to break them up into 2 parts, this being the first. I'd love to put them all in one entry, but I just haven't had the chance to write them all down yet. I did have something too crazy happen while I was out there, but we did have... I didn't have anything too crazy happen while I was out there, but we did have one incident with a rookie that I found relevant. Since I'm sure that you guys have been waiting for these, I'll just get right into the stories. I'll assign each batch of stories to the person who told them to me. KD. KD is a vet who's been an SAR officer for about 15 years. She specializes in high elevation mountain rescues and is widely considered one of the best in her field. She was one of the more enthusiastic storytellers, and since we were together a fair amount during exercises, she ended up telling me about 4 that really stuck with me. Hello, Gem. Welcome to the chat. The first one she told me in response to my asking about her most traumatic calls. She shook her head and told me that really bad calls happen more frequently on the mountain, since the potential for nasty accidents is higher. About 5 years ago, one of the parks she worked at had a string of disappearances. It was a bad year, she said, one of the worst on record as far as weather went, and they were getting about a foot of new snow every couple of days. And there were avalanches that killed some climbers. They'd warn people about staying on the mapped areas, but of course, there's always those who don't listen. Excessive Night, thank you so much for gifting that membership. And sincerely, Felix, welcome to being a channel member. Enjoy your new content. In one particularly nasty case, an entire family got wiped out because the father decided he knew better than the officials, and he took them out into an area that wasn't safe. They were snowshoeing, and as best KD could figure, they walked onto a shelf of snow that looked solid, but actually wasn't. It gave way, and with this, the family went ass over tea kettle almost 300 feet down a slope. They landed on the rocks at the bottom, and the parents died instantly. One of the kids did as well, but the other two survived. One had a broken leg and fractured ribs, and the other was almost unharmed, save for some bruising and a sprained ankle. The uninjured child left his sibling behind and set out to find help. KD said the kid didn't make it more than half a mile before a storm overtook him. Kids stopped to try and get warm, or maybe just rest, and ended up freezing to death. They ended up finding the family with the help of some witnesses who saw them heading out into the wilderness, and she was one to find the kid who frozen to death looking for help. She said it had started to snow, just enough to obscure long-distance vision, but not enough to make searching impossible. She saw a figure sitting in the snow up ahead, and she got to it as quickly as possible. She described in detail how as she got closer, she realized first that it was a child, second that they were deceased, and third that they'd frozen in one of the most pitiful positions she's ever found a corpse in. The kid was sitting upright with his knees tucked against his chest, his arms were curled around them, and his head was tucked up in his coat. When she moved the coat to look at his face, she saw that he'd died crying. His face was twisted, and the tears were frozen on his cheeks. She said it was painfully obvious that the kid was terrified when he succumbed to hypothermia, and as his mother, as a mother, it broke her heart. She told me repeatedly that she hopes the father is burning in hell as we speak. Now bear in mind, chat, that these are just stories, so these aren't real. These aren't real. Mike misreading your name is a rite of passage, chat. Yeah, that actually is true, unfortunately. I apologize if I have misread your name this evening. I don't even know what I would have said, but welcome to your new nickname. The other traumatic story she told me that stood out in my mind was one that happened when she was a rookie. A team got a report of an experienced climber who hadn't come home the previous day. His wife was convinced that something bad had happened because he'd never failed to come home on time. They went out looking for him and had to climb what sounded like some very technically challenging parts of the mountain. They got to a relatively flat area and Katie started seeing blood in the snow. She followed the trail, and as she went, she started seeing little bits of tissue. She wasn't exactly sure what body part it had come from, but the farther she followed it, the more there was. She follows the blood and tissue trail to a sheltered area under a cliff face, and she finds the climber. She said there was so much blood, more than she'd ever seen before. He was lying face down, one arm stretched in front of him, as if he'd died crawling. She looks closer, and sees that he's partially been disemboweled, which is where the tissue she'd seen had come from. The guy has an ice pick tucked into a hip holster, and it's covered in blood. Of course, they'll never be sure exactly what happened, but she said as best she can figure this is what went down. The guy had been attempting to climb up to the next area and had been using his ice axe to ascend. He probably hit a loose patch and had fallen. On the way down, or possibly when he landed, he'd gotten impaled on the axe and it had disemboweled him. He dug himself along the tearing... he drug himself... Drug? Is that a word? I thought it was dragged. Drug? Okay, fine. He drug himself along, tearing pieces of himself out as he went, and had died under the cliff face. She isn't terribly bothered by gore, but I guess a few of the guys who came to help her remove the body threw up when they turned him over, and a good portion of intestine spilled out. I mentioned to her that I was interested in hearing about any experiences she'd had with people completely disappearing. Her eyes light up as she leans in close to me. Want to hear a real doozy, she asks. She tells me about how, when she first started, there was a case that got a lot of attention in the media. A family had been out berry picking in an area of the forest very close to the entrance of the park. They had 2 little boys, both under the age of 5, and at some point during the day, one of them vanishes. There's an absolutely massive search, and they find absolutely nothing. It's another of those cases where it's like this kid was never there in the first place. The dogs just sit down and don't pick up on anything. No trace of the kid is found. The search goes on for about 2 months, but is eventually called off. Fast forward to 6 months later, and the family comes back to place flowers at a memorial that had been set up for the kid. They bring their other son, and while they're placing the flowers, they lose sight of the kid for about 3 seconds, and in that span of time, he vanishes into thin air. Now, obviously, the parents are beyond devastated. It's awful enough to lose 1 child, but to lose 2 is beyond imagining. The search is huge, one of the largest in state history. There are about 300 volunteers combing every inch of this park looking for the kid, but again, there's no trace of him. The search goes on for about a week, with people looking miles from the part of the park he vanished from. And then, almost 2 weeks later, a volunteer almost 15 miles from the designated search area radios that he's found the kid. They assumed that the kid was dead, but the volunteer says no. He's not only alive, he's in good shape. Katie and her team go out to recover the kid, and when they get there, she can't believe that this is the kid that's been missing. His clothes are clean, there's no dirt on him anywhere, and he doesn't appear traumatized. The volunteer says he found the kid sitting on a log playing with a little twig bundle that's bound together with some old rope. Katie asks him where he's been and who he's been with these 2 weeks. The kid tells her that he's been with the Fuzzy Man. Now, Katie firmly believes in Bigfoot, so she gets all excited and asks what he means by fuzzy. Was he hairy? But the kid says no, he wasn't hairy. He was a fuzzy man. And he describes a man that's blurry, like when you close your eyes, but not all the way closed. He says the man came out of the trees and took the kid with him deep into the woods. The kid said he slept in a hollow tree, and the fuzzy man gave him berries to eat. Katie asks if the man was mean, if he scared the kid, and the kid says no, he wasn't scary. But I didn't like how he didn't have eyes. Katie says they get the kid back to headquarters, and a cop takes him down to talk to him more about what happened. She's friends with the cop that they talked to, and she said the kid described being kept in this tree by the fuzzy man and given berries whenever he was hungry. He was allowed to wander around a very specific clearing, but when he tried to go further, the fuzzy man would get mad and yell real loud even though he didn't have a mouth. And when the kid got scared at night, the fuzzy man made it go brighter and gave him the twig bundle. He said the fuzzy man is going to keep him, but he had to let him go because the kid wasn't the right kind. He either can't or won't elaborate more on that. The cops are just sort of left scratching their heads, and the search for his brother is renewed with no results. The kid has no idea where his brother might be, and they never find him. Curiouser and curiouser. The lore thickens. The last story that Katie had for me was of something that happened to her when she got separated from her training group when she was still a rookie. They were learning the basics of high elevation belaying on a wall-mapped side of the mountain, and she had to use the bathroom. She went off about 50 yards from the group during a meal break and did her business. I'll tell the rest exactly as she told me. Quote, "So I go to take a piss, and once I'm done, I start going back to the group. But I've only gotten about 15 feet when I realize that I have no idea where I am. This wasn't a, uh-oh, I got turned around lost. I mean, I had literally no fucking clue where I was. If you'd asked me, I don't even think I've been able to tell you what state we were in. It was sort of how I imagined people with amnesia feel, you know? We are completely lost and you have no idea what to do. So I stood there for a while, just trying to figure out where the fuck I was and what I was supposed to do. But the longer I stand there, the more confused and turned around I get. So I start walking. As I recall, I just picked a random direction and went for it. And as I'm walking, it's just getting worse and worse to the point where I have no concept of why I'm on the mountain in the first place. I'm just trudging through the snow. And then I start hearing this voice. It's kind of in my head almost, like a frog could talk, all low and croaky. And it's telling me over and over, it's okay. It's okay. You just need to find something to eat. Find something to eat and you'll be okay. Just keep walking and find something to eat. 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 So I start looking around for anything I can eat, and I swear to God, I have never felt that hungry in my whole life. It was bottomless. And I think I'd eaten just about anything put in front of me right there and then. I had no concept of time, so I have no idea how long I'd been there when I hear an actual voice coming towards me. I go towards it and I see one of the other SARs, and he's looking fucking terrified. He's running towards me, asking if I'm okay and what the hell I'm doing out here. And the scary thing was, he's running towards me. I can kind of see myself reaching into my belt for my hunting knife. I'm not even really thinking about what I'm doing, but I'm just thinking, all I'm thinking is I have to eat. And if I don't eat, I'll never be okay again. So I just have to eat. And he sees me doing that and he backs off right away. He yells at me to put the knife away, that he's not going to hurt me. And that kind of snaps me back. All of a sudden, I know exactly where I am, and I put the knife away. I run to him and ask him how long I've been gone, thinking he'll tell me I've been gone for half an hour or so, but he tells me I've been gone for 2 fucking days. I've never gone over 2 peaks and ended up almost on the other side of the mountain, and if I'd kept going, I would have ended up wandering about 300 miles off into the wilderness. They'd have never found me. He can't believe I'm not dead, and of course, I don't know what the fuck to think. To me, no time has passed at all. I don't say anything. I just go back with him and to the rendezvous point to think. I'm taken back to HQ to be airlifted to the hospital. When I get there, they do all kinds of tests and try to figure out what happened. As best they can guess, I had some kind of weird fugu state, which is kind of like amnesia or a weird seizure that knocked my brain out of whack. But the truth is that we really don't know. It's never happened again, but I'll tell you, ever since then, I never go out there alone. People rag on me for making them come with me when I leave the group, but I just tell them that listening to me piss in the snow is better than losing me for 2 fucking days on a freezing mountain. Curiouser and curiouser. And so the story continues. EW. The next person I talked to was EW, a former trainer who now works as an EMT. He still comes to ops like this to help out, but doesn't work full-time for us anymore. He specialized in finding lost kids. He just seemed to have a sixth sense when it came to knowing where they'd gone. He's a legend among the more senior vets, but he gets embarrassed if you compliment him on his work. He sat down with me at dinner one evening, and we ended up swapping stories. Most of them were just casual, but when we got onto the subject of our weirder calls, I mentioned that I'd had a buddy who'd gone up a set of stairs. He got kind of quiet and asked me if I'd heard of a little boy who'd disappeared from his park a few years back. And I hadn't. So he told me this story. They were out looking for this 11-year-old boy, Joey, who'd gone missing near a river. Of course, the first thought is that he'd fallen in and drowned, but when they brought the dogs out, they led the SAR officers away from the river and up into a very densely forested area. When we do searches for people, we search in a grid pattern, and we search every box of the grid incredibly thoroughly. What EW's team noticed right away was that a very strange pattern was emerging. Dogs in alternating boxes were picking up Joey's scent, but losing it when they overlapped with another box. If you think of a checkboard, Joey's scent was being picked up in random black squares, but never in red. I think they fundamentally misunderstood what a checkerboard is, because I thought they were black and white, but okay. You guys know what a black and red board looks like. Let me know in the comments section below. This, of course, didn't make any sense, because how could the kid even bounce from area to area without leaving scent in the places he'd passed? EW and his partner pass into a new box of the grid, and EW notices a set of stairs about 50 yards away. He tells his partner that they need to go check near it, but his partner flat out refuses. He tells EW that he's made it a point to never go near any stairs that he sees, and while it may be routine, he's not to pretend that it's normal. He tells EW that he'll wait in sight while EW checks. EW says he was irritated, but he felt for the guy and didn't want to push him on the subject. Quote, I walked over to the stairs. They were small, kind of like stairs into a basement. I don't really feel strongly one way or the other about them, the stairs I mean, so I wasn't scared or anything. I guess I'm just like anyone else, I just prefer not to think about them too much. Anyway, I went over, and I could see that there was something lying on the bottom step, sort of curled up. My hair sinks, because, you know, of course you can always hope for the best. My hair sings. My hair sings. My hair sings? My hair sings. My hair sings. Because of course you always hope for the best. Am I stupid? I don't understand that at all. Anyway. And we were confident that we'd find this kid alive, because he'd only been missing a few hours. But I knew right away that it was him, and that he was dead. He was curled up in a little ball on the step, holding his stomach. It looked like he'd been in horrible pain when he died, but I didn't see any blood except some on his lips and chin. I radioed in that I found him, and we got his body back to command. That poor family. They were devastated. The parents couldn't understand how he'd be dead, because he'd only been gone such a short amount of time. And on top of that, we didn't have any obvious cause of death, which just made it worse. Figured he'd probably eaten something poisonous since he was holding his stomach when I found him, but I didn't want to guess. It was hard enough to hear that your kid is dead, let alone that some stupid SAR guy guessing about what happened. They took him away, and I went home and I tried not to think about it. I hate finding dead kids, man. I love this job, but it's one of the reasons I left. I've got 2 daughters, and the thought of losing them that way just... He chokes up a little here. I'm not great with emotional stuff like that, and it's always sort of awkward to see a grown man cry, so I didn't really know what to do. He pulled himself together eventually, though, and he kept going. We don't always hear back from the coroners about cause of death. It's not really our job to know, I guess, and sometimes if they think that it's foul play, they won't tell us because of legal bullshit. But I've got a friend who works for the sheriff's department, and he'll usually pass along any interesting info if I ask. In this case, though, I actually got a call from him about a week later. He asks if I remember the kid, and of course I do. He says some seriously weird shit is going on. He tells me, EW, man, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but the coroner has no idea what happened to this kid. He's never seen anything like it. My friend goes on to tell me when the coroner opened up the kid, he couldn't even believe what he was seeing. Kid's organs were like Swiss cheese. Quarter-sized holes were punched clean through just about every single organ the kid had, aside for his heart and lungs. But his colon, his stomach, his kidneys, and even one of his testicles, they're full of clean holes. My friend said the coroner described it as if someone had taken a hole punch and punched holes in it and everything. They were so neat. The kid didn't have a scratch on him. No entry or exit wounds. The closest anyone there had to seen like it was a guy who'd filled himself full of buckshot a year or so back while cleaning his rifle. No one had a clue what could possibly have caused it. My friend asks me if I'd ever heard of anything like it, or if we'd had any similar cases in the past. I'd never heard something like that. I told him I wasn't going to be of any help to him. As far as I know, the coroner determined the cause of death to be something like massive internal bleeding. But no one knows what really happened. I've never been able to forget that kid. I have nightmares about it sometimes. I don't let my kids go into the woods alone, and when we do, we go together. I never let them out of my sight. I used to love it out here, but that case and a couple of others just sort of ruined it for me. Dinner was over, so we started to clean up and go back to our cabins. But before we went our separate ways, he put his hand on my shoulder and looked at me really close. He tells me that there's bad things out here, things that don't care if we have families or lives, or that we can think and feel. He tells me to be careful, and he walks away. I didn't have a chance to talk with him again. But that story, that stuck with me. PB. By pure coincidence, I got to talk to another vet, PB, who's been in the SAR field for years. We got partnered on a grid sweep during a training exercise, and we were chatting casually about how we like the job, what kind of things we've seen, and the like. At one point, we passed an old set of stairs, so these were probably from an old fire lookout, not given the area that we were in. I sort of casually mentioned that I was curious about the stairs, and I wish I knew more about them. He got kind of quiet and looked like he wanted to tell me something, but wasn't sure if he should. Finally, he told me to turn my radio off. Obviously, this is something we are never, ever supposed to do, but I did it, and he did the same. About 7 years ago, he tells me, he was out on a call with a rookie. They were in the area of the park that's had a lot of strange reports of events, disappearances, stories about lights in the forest, odd noises, things like that. The rookie was totally spooked, kept going on about things in the woods. According to PB, quote, "Guy just wouldn't stop talking about the goatman. Just go on and on, goatman this and goatman that. And finally, I told him there was plenty else to be afraid of out here that was real, and that he'd better get over this thing with the goatman." The rookie wanted to know what kind of things I was talking about. I just told him to shut up and walk. We crested the little ridge where there was a staircase about 10 yards ahead. The rookie stops dead in his tracks and just stands there looking at them. I tell him, "See? That's something you should be afraid of." The rookie asks me what the hell these things are doing out here. And for some reason, I just open up and tell him the truth. Or what I've been told is the truth. I could have gotten in a lot of trouble for doing what I did, and I could get in a lot of trouble for repeating it to you, but you're a nice kid and I want you to stop looking into this. Quit while you're ahead. So I'll tell you what I know under the condition that you never breathe a word of this to the soups. I told him I wouldn't say a word, and he double checks that our radios are off. When I first started out, we were a little less tight-lipped about them. The other things that happened out here, yeah. We warned people before they were even hired that there was weird shit going on. I guess the Forest Service was tired of having such a massive turnover rate, and they wanted people to know what they were getting into. So they started having people sign these agreements that they wouldn't go to the media about what they were going to see. The FS didn't want to scare people away, so the last thing they needed was spooked rookies running off to the media with stories about ghosts and haunted stairs. But eventually, they found that the agreements weren't necessary. People not only didn't want to talk about what they saw, they wouldn't. A few times media tried to talk to people when kids or hikers would disappear, and no one would say a word. I can't really explain it. I guess we just didn't really want to admit anything was wrong. This is our job, to be out in the woods every single day. We don't need to be spooked, and the best way to avoid this is to pretend like everything's okay. So I'll just tell you everything I can think of, and after that I am done talking about it for good. And I expect you to not bring this up ever around me. The stairs have been out there as long as the parks have existed. We have records going back decades describing them. Sometimes people go up them and nothing happens. Other times... Look, I really don't like talking about this, but sometimes really bad shit happens. I saw one guy get his hand sliced clean off when he got to the top of the steps. He reached out to touch a tree branch, and it happened so fast. One second his hand was there, and the next it was gone. Completely clean wound. We didn't find his hand. The guy almost died. Another time, a woman touched one of the stairs, and a blood vessel in her brain exploded. Literally exploded like a water balloon. She sort of stumbled down and came over to me, and all she got out was, "I think something's wrong with me." She dropped like a sack of flour, dead before she hit the ground. I'll never forget the way the blood leaked to the inside of her eye before she died. I watched it turn red. I watched it happen, and there wasn't a single thing that I could do to help. We warn people not to go anywhere near them, but there's always at least one idiot who does. And even if nothing happens to them, something bad always happens. Kids go missing as we're on their trail. Some die next day, cut in half in a completely safe part of the park. I don't know why, but something bad always happens. I don't know exactly why they're out here, but it doesn't matter. They're here, and if we're smart, we tell our new officers exactly what they're capable of. We were both quiet for a little while. I was afraid to talk because I wasn't sure if he was done. He looked like he wanted to say something else, and finally he spoke up again. "Have you ever noticed how you can't find the same ones twice?" I nodded, expecting him to continue, but he just stayed quiet, walking alongside me, and eventually he started a story about the biggest deer he'd ever seen in the park. I didn't bring up the subject again, and I didn't press him for any more stories. He dropped out of the op the next day. Apparently, he left before the sun came up. He said he was sick. None of us have heard from him since he left. I'm going to stop here for the time being. I'll try and post the next part in the coming days, but what with it being the end of summer, things are pretty busy here. Thanks for the continued interest, guys. You've really awakened this curiosity in me that I didn't know that I had. And so ends, chat, part 4 of I'm a search and rescue officer for the US Forest Service, and I have some stories to tell. If you'd like me to read part 5, let me know in the comment section down below, and we can continue with this next time. But chat, I've taken some of your advice, and I understand that one of the things you might quite like is a palate cleanser between stories. So chat, to shrug off the blues of the previous story, may I present 2 very different stories. These ones from a slightly different part of Reddit space and sent to me by our very own Gem, one of my mods. These are from r/petty revenge. So may I introduce to you, I possibly made my old job shut down. Enjoy. This was when I was 18 or 19, way back in the days of landlines and dial-up. I worked at a small local pizza place, which I won't name to protect myself, where I was the only female. Everyone, including the manager, liked to go outside and smoke during the dinner rush and leave me by myself to answer calls, get the drive-through window, and cook all at the same time, all while dealing with the panic attacks this caused. They'd then come back in and laugh at me for making sexist jokes around me. I finally had enough of this surreal nightmare and quit. That left me plenty of time to play RuneScape. For anyone who hasn't heard, it's an online game with masses of people. I know I used to play it. I was pretty good at it back in the day. I had no life, and I also had a grudge, which is a potent combination. So I made a female character whose name was the phone number of the pizza place, and just stood around in the most populated parts of the game where all the new players have freshly come out of the tutorial. Every single day during what I knew from experience would be their dinner rush hours, and spammed, "Call this number for a good time." And thank you, Rover Elliott, for your 11 months of membership. I used an autotyper program so I could do this non-stop. The thing is, this pizza place had no seating, and was drive-through carry-out only, so 90% of their orders were placed over the phone. It closed down for some reason about a month into me doing this, and when I ran into one of my ex-co-workers, he told me they'd shut down because their business had taken such a hit due to constant, quote, prank calls that tied up their phone line. Nobody ever figured out where they were coming from. And Rover Elliott, thank you so much for those 5 gift memberships, and of course, welcome to all of our new channel members. Do remember, to say thank you to Rover Elliott. And Darcy Does Cosplay, welcome to the chat. It's good to see you. Spirally has finally joined the ranks of membership once again. Well, chat, petty or not, I feel like it seems to me that this pizza place met a just ending. Or so they say. So, as a second palate cleanser, may I introduce you to a second story that was sent to me by Jem on r/petty revenge by I Put Them Somewhere, who apparently is a top 1% poster. This was posted about 9 days ago and is the story of guest was rude to my cats, so Luna took matters into her own bladder. Enjoy. Had a friend stay over for a few nights. I was doing a favour spare room warm house. All I asked was respect and the space, to respect the space and don't treat it like a hotel. It's simple. But from the second he met my cats, Luna and Betty, he was off. The first thing he did when Luna walked in the room was shoo Betty and say, "I don't like cats. They think they own the place." Sir, she does own the place. He kept shooing them away, closing doors they normally had access to, and he even had the audacity to say, "Don't they have a cage or something? Like they're gerbils or something." Anyway, I came home from work on day 2, and he's ranting about how his coat smells weird. I go to check it, and it was right next to the litter box. Sure enough, there it is. The unmistakable scent of cat justice. Luna had peed directly on the coat, not out of confusion, not by accident. It was a calculated strike. I can only assume. And so, chat, this ends our rather short story with 0 comments and 3.4 thousand upvotes. Thank you very much, Jem, for sharing these palate cleanser stories on r/petty revenge. Now, chat, we're coming towards the middle to the end of our reading stream for the day. And we do have one more story to go through. This one was sent to me by one of our chat, and again is in the r/NoSleep subreddit by Mr. Stuff, and was posted about 8 years ago. Welcome, Luca. It's good to see you. So after these stories of cat justice and closing down of misogynistic pizza restaurants, may I present to you Charles Bonnet syndrome. Enjoy. I suffer with a condition called Charles Bonnet syndrome, or visual release hallucinations if you want to go more technical. It's a condition that's far more common than you might realise. It's estimated that as many as half of the people with gradual loss of vision will experience one or more bouts in their lifetime. Yet, I'm willing to bet that most of you have never heard of it. The reason for that is because most sufferers are scared to tell anybody what they experience. I know that I was. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Andrew, and I'm 26. Hi, Andrew. 2 years ago, I woke up with awful blurred vision. Every single edge and detail clouded as if someone had smeared Vaseline on a camera lens. It never got better. I was scared then, and got over to Dr. Harper's surgery as fast as I could, suddenly needing to take a cab rather than climb in the car I'd driven without incident ever since I'd bought it 3 years prior. The doctor did some tests, asked me some questions, like, have you been much thirstier lately? How often do you urinate? How would you describe your tiredness levels? And then gave me the diagnosis that changed my life forever. This, chat, was the person who peed on a jacket of a housemate not too long ago. Diabetes. Type 1. He explained that I would need to take insulin shots with every meal, that eating the wrong foods without mentioning my blood sugar could see me drop into a coma, or worse. And then he got to my eyes. Andrew, your diabetes has resulted in maculopathy. Maculopathy? Andrew, your diabetes has resulted in maculopathy. Do you know what that is? I shook my head dumbly, already reeling with the shock of my diagnosis, and Dr. Harper went on. It's when the diabetes affects the blood vessels at the back of your eye, blocking them back and It's when the diabetes affects the blood vessels at the back of your eye, blocking them and causing them to leak into the macula, the center part of your retina that helps you to perceive color and fine detail. When these blood vessels leak into the macula, it causes significant damage. With a lump in my throat, I asked, "Okay, so how do we make this better?" I couldn't see Dr. Harper's face properly when he spoke, but his tone of voice was enough to tell me what I'd been dreading. "I'm sorry, Andrew," he replied gravely. "Perhaps if we caught this a little sooner, we might have had some treatment options available to us, but I'm afraid the damage has been pretty extensive. We can take steps to arrest the development of the condition, but I'm afraid it's irreversible." I felt as if my world had come crashing down around me. I was 24, still at my physical peak. I was active, playing basketball and cycling a couple of times a week, and now my health, my body, and my sight had been taken from me. The first 6 months were tough. I broke up with my girlfriend, a sweet girl called Holly, who tried to make it work but couldn't because I was so damn angry all the time. I lost my job because if there's one thing an architect needs, it's his eyes. I even fell out with a lot of my friends, making excuses not to meet with them until they stopped asking. In truth, it was jealousy on my part. Envy that they got to keep living while everything I'd hoped for had been snatched away. I became a recluse, never leaving my apartment, barely bothering to wash, shave, or get dressed each day. I was so sure that my life was over, I stopped even trying to live it. I was an asshole. Man, this should have been posted in r/am I the asshole. We continue. It took me a long time to realize this, but in the end, it was the nurse assigned to my visit. It took me a long time to realize this, but in the end, it was the nurse assigned to visit me at home. A tall, no-nonsense, experienced woman called Lois who brought this to my attention. "You're an asshole," she said. "I'm a what?" I gasped, shocked at her language. "So you've got diabetes. Do you know how many people do?" she asked. Then, before waiting for my answer, she continued. "Do you think that they'd all hide in their apartments, refusing to get on with their lives? Losing your vision is a terrible thing, and you do have my sympathy, but Andrew, it's no excuse to give up." "But you don't," I argued, trying to defend myself, but she hadn't finished. "Understand?" she growled. "One of the bravest men I know was paralyzed from the neck down when he was just a child, and he hasn't given up. You can do so much more with your life, and you have people that want to help you do that, but you can't even be bothered to shave that ugly fucking beard off. Stop being a crybaby and make a fucking difference." Of course, it didn't happen overnight, and I argued with her. I was furious at her blunt insensitivity and told her to leave. I said I'd tell her superiors, but she laughed and told me that I wouldn't. "You won't because you're a smart guy and you've got too much pride for that," she said. "I'll see you next week." That night I shaved. I opened my curtains and actually looked around. Things were blurry, but when I really looked, I could see things scattered around my home, the mess I'd let it become. When Lois came back the following week, the place was tidy. I was clean-shaven, dressed. I'd even attempted to comb my hair. She didn't say anything about it, didn't mention the argument the week before, but she took me out for coffee down the street. She guided me along the sidewalk to the coffee shop, talking to me, reassuring me. It was daunting, even though it was less than a block away, but I felt so proud when I got there. We talked, me and Lois. I think I even laughed. Afterwards, she walked me home. Then, when she helped me get back inside, she said, "It's nice to meet you at last, Andrew." That day was the beginning of my new life. I moved into a new apartment, a ground floor place, and joined a group of other young people with visual impairments. I made friends. I got out every day, even if it was just a short walk, but I made a point of seeing what I could of the world. I brought what I could, but the Sawyers, the old couple that ran the local store, would bring my groceries by one... Oh my lord, sorry, this is actually quite hard to read, sheesh. I bought what I could, but the Sawyers, the old couple that ran the store, would bring my groceries by once a week. Clark's a gruff old coot, so he refuses to coddle me, and he's told me that he respects me for being like I am, for maintaining my independence, and for not giving up. From a guy like him, that's one of the sweetest things I've ever heard. Things were going well, and then 1 year ago it started. I walked into my living room, a mug of coffee in hand, and I saw a Victorian funeral carriage stood right there on my rug, complete with two huge, proud horses in full livery, adorned with long black plumes in their bridles. They stood perfectly still, but the driver, a small bearded man in period costume and a top hat, fidgeted with the reins and peered at me expectantly. Bizarrely, they were far clearer than any of the usual blurry shapes I could see. I damn near pissed my pants. I damn near pissed my pants. I dropped the cup, spilling scalding hot coffee over my bare feet, jumping backwards with a cry of pain and alarm. When I returned my attention to the horses and carriage back in the room, they were gone. In that moment, I wondered if I was going mad. Apparently most of us do, which is understandable. But how could you feel if you'd seen the exact same sight in your home? Unless you're Jack the Ripper, I imagine many of you do not have a coach and horses just laying around. I certainly didn't. Was Jack the Ripper famous for having a horse and carriage? I wasn't aware of that, damn. Eventually, after much quiet swearing to myself, and more than a little self-delusion, I managed to convince myself that I had not seen what I thought I had, that it was merely a very vivid daydream. This seemed to work, and I got on with living, even if I entered that same room a little more cautiously in the days that followed, and finally, I forgot about it. 2 weeks later, I saw a giant, floating, swirling orange ball in my bathroom. I damn near pissed my pants! I stood staring at it, this bizarre, rotating, levitating globe that was a little larger than a beach ball hanging in mid-air over my tub. Open-mouthed for a full 10 seconds, before finally screwing my eyelids tightly closed and whispering to myself, "That isn't there, that isn't there." After 5 seconds, I opened my eyes again, and it wasn't there. Have you ever had cause to doubt your own sanity? To wonder whether what you perceived is truly there, or if your mind has just betrayed you? Honestly, compared to the loss of vision, the prospect of me losing my wits was much more terrifying. I'd fought against adversity, and took pride in the fact that I'm not just a survivor, I'm someone who is living his own life. How could I do that if I was insane? I barely slept that night, and I remained jumpy for days afterwards. Any sign of movement or unfamiliar shape would send my pulse racing, would cause me to doubt whether it was truly there, would cause me to piss my pants. It was the toughest time I'd ever been through, even worse than that time I was diagnosed with diabetes, but didn't piss my pants. At least Dr. Harper had told me about the diabetes. I had a definite prognosis. I was given facts by a medical professional. My affliction was physical, it had a name, and most important, it had a treatment plan. This was something else. My own mind had turned against me. My senses and perception of reality had become twisted and unreliable. It's only when you're in that position that you realize just how terrifying it is. Your senses, and the way in which your brain interprets them, are your only true defenses against danger. You perceive danger, and you avoid it, preventing your body from becoming harmed. But what happens when you can't trust your perception to alert you to the dangers that are truly there? Lois picked up on the problem first, noticing my skittish manner. She asked what was wrong, if I needed to talk about anything, but I told her no, I was fine, but I hadn't been sleeping well. The last part was true. I hadn't been able to sleep a wink. Just the very thought of being institutionalized, spending the rest of my days in a sedated blue pajama-clad zombie in a white room with only the echoing cries of my fellow inmates for company, that terrified me beyond measure. But what was the alternative? Live life as a risk to myself and others? Ultimately, I chose to ignore it. I reasoned that if I was able to function around other people without them realizing what was going on, that was good enough. A full month passed before the next incident, and I really did think that maybe I'd put this whole mess behind me. With every passing day, my confidence had grown, so that Wednesday morning I'd stepped out onto the sunny street feeling pretty carefree. Each Wednesday I'd treat myself to a latte down at Joe's, the same coffee shop I'd visited with Lois. It was a custom that gave me a great deal of pleasure, one that had seen me forge friendships with other regulars as well as staff, including Joe himself. I made my way down the street, white stick in hand, and I glanced about me, taking in the colours and shapes of the world around me. I enjoyed the feel of the sun on my face and the sounds of the birds singing. It was a good day. And then I saw them. A party of pilgrims, 6 of them, all dressed in settler-era attire, sitting cross-legged on the asphalt. They didn't look at me. Instead, they were engaged in a heated yet strangely silent conversation. I froze, staring at them. Still they argued, gesticulating furiously at one another. However, I couldn't hear their angry voices, despite the fact that, judging by their ill temperament, they must be screaming at one another. Paralyzed by shock, the white stick fell from my numb fingers, clattering to the sidewalk. I turned to leave, desperate to flee from the haunting sight of seeing the colonists on the road, but I was so panicked and in such a hurry that I stepped on my cane. It rolled underfoot, and before I knew it, I pitched over, tumbling to the hard ground below. I didn't quite break my fall in time, banging my cheek hard on the floor and skinning my palms. I heard a cry from a passerby, a friendly, concerned woman who rushed to my side. She knelt beside me, helping me up, applying a Kleenex to my throbbing cheek, which she informed me was now bleeding. I tried to tell her that I was okay, that there was nothing to worry about, but this good Samaritan insisted on driving me to Dr. Harper's office to get my injuries looked at. Now I think back to it, I'm pretty sure that she knew my obvious distress was nothing to do with the fall. At the time I was embarrassed, angry even, but now I realize I owe her a debt of gratitude. Without her intervention, I don't know how much longer this would have gone on for before I cracked up and ended up in an asylum after breaking down through sheer stress. Andrew, why don't you tell me what happened? Dr. Harper added, gently dabbing at my cheek with the disinfectant. I explained that I'd just lost my balance, that no harm was done, but I think he saw through my feeble protestations to my underlying agitation. He didn't press, he didn't force the matter, he simply asked what might have caused my clumsiness, and then he asked how I'd been as of late. When I'd finished mumbling my way through the most non-committal answer I could muster, he placed a gentle, reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Andrew," he repeated gently, "why don't you tell me what happened?" I burst into tears. I told him how scared I was, how I fought so hard for my independence, and now I knew it would be taken from me. He listened, patiently, and then asked me to tell him why I ever thought that. I paused then, took a deep breath in, and thought about it. This was the point of no return. But really, what other option did I have? So, with tears running down my cheeks, I told Dr. Harper everything. I told him about the horse and carriage, the orange globe, and the pilgrims. I told him how I'd been living each day in fear, and how I was terrified that I was losing my mind. Dr. Harper thought for a while and then said, "Andrew, I don't think you're losing your mind." The sense of relief in that moment was so powerful it overwhelmed me, rendering me speechless. "You say that you've seen these things, that you've never heard any noise from them. Have you detected any odors or experienced any other physical sensations, like touching them?" I shook my head no, and he patted my shoulder once again. "Andrew, have you heard of Charles Bonnet syndrome?" he asked. "Charles Bonnet? Who?" I asked, confused by this sudden, unexpected turn of conversation. "Okay, let me explain." Dr. Harper said kindly as I pissed my pants. Charles Bonnet was a Swiss naturalist who was born in the 1700s. He discovered a curious condition in his elderly grandfather, who was nearly completely blind due to cataracts. The old man regularly experienced visual hallucinations, including random patterns and even people and places. Sound familiar? Yeah, I replied, still confused. Am I suffering dementia? No, Andrew, not at all, Dr. Harper reassured me. Do you know how perception works? In layman's terms, your eyes take in light via the iris and pupil, which is then processed by the retina and translated into electrical signals which are decoded by the brain, which simply organizes these signals into a recognizable image. Are you with me so far? I nodded, finally starting to piss my pants. When the retina becomes damaged, such as those that have undergone macular degeneration, those signals become warped and jumbled, Dr. Harper went on. The brain still receives them, so it does its job, translating these distorted signals into an image. It kind of fills in the gaps for you. Sometimes it fills these gaps with colours, patterns, creatures, and places that aren't persistent. And this is called Charles Bonnet syndrome. I nearly wept with relief. So, I'm not mad? I cried. Not at all, the doctor replied. This is an entirely physical condition. Your mind is in full working order. If you were suffering from any form of mental illness, your delusions wouldn't be limited to just one sense. You'd hear these interlopers, smell them, even feel them. This is a condition solely related to your eyes, not your brain. As I left Dr. Harper's office, I felt as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Sure, my vision was still an issue, but now I knew it was only a problem with my eyes, not my mind. I knew I could handle the situation, and I was ready to face the world again. Since then, I've seen plenty of weird visions. I saw a huge waterfall in the park, complete with hazy mist and butterflies flitting about it. I saw a Native American warrior, complete with a huge feather headdress, sitting at a stool in the counter in the coffee shop. I saw an intricate and quite impossible structure of scaffolding crisscrossing the entire front of my apartment block. Hell, on the 4th of July last year, I even saw a great swooping green dragon in the sky, twisting and cavorting through the air overhead. All looked utterly and completely real, yet now I know that they were simply tricks of the eye. They were no longer disturbing. In fact, I actually came quite to enjoy them, even looking at them as unique and entertaining little shows or works of art that existed purely for my pleasure and no one else's. I came to welcome them. Then a month ago, I saw her. It was nighttime. It's always nighttime when I see her, and I was just getting ready for bed. I walked into the kitchen to get myself a glass of water and actually cried out in alarm when I spotted the figure in the corner. She was tall, and by far the tallest woman I'd ever seen, and even though she stood hunched, she still had at least 6 inches on me. Lady Demetresque. Someone call Markiplier. I was used to seeing characters in dated and bizarre dress, but this was different somehow. It didn't seem like an outfit from any time, or any one time. Instead, a bizarre mismatch of items. She wore a tuxedo jacket, figure-hugging and black, tailored to the female body shape, over a dirty old ruffled dress shirt. To complete the ensemble, she wore a bright red bow tie. On her hands, which she held out to either side as if shrugging, or maybe feeling for rain, she wore dirty white gloves. Her fingers were disproportionately long, almost spidery, and occasionally they twitched, as if she longed to grip and squeeze something in them. On her lower half, she wore shorts, the same crimson as her bow tie, over opaque black nylons. Her legs were long, lithe, attractive, if truth be told. The legs of a dancer. I pissed my pants. She also wore red heels, the same hue as her shorts and bow tie, but they sparkled and shimmered, bringing to mind Judy Garland's ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz. Copyright infringement. As strange as this ensemble was, I couldn't tear my eyes away from her face. Most of it was obscured by a jaunty bowler hat, tipped and tilted to hide her eyes and nose, but beneath the brim of the hat, I could see the deathly pale skin of her face and a grin that sent shivers down my spine. It was wide, too wide, with entirely too many teeth. A smile is meant to be an expression of warmth. It's meant to feel welcoming and benevolent, but the look on this woman's face oozed malice. It felt much like a sort of glee that I'd expect from a snake as it corners a rat. I don't know if snakes smile, and the thought of that made me piss my pants. However, the thing that startled me most was that she had a third arm sprouting from her back, curled up and over her head like a scorpion's tail. It was longer than any arm should be, and the hand only had 3 fingers, like a claw. It was pointed straight at me, and as I swore in dismay and stumbled sideways, it seemed to track my movement. I stood staring at the creepy figure for a few seconds, trying to get my head around the situation. She just stood there, in the corner, grinning back. Finally, I realized this was just another of my hallucinations, and breathed an audible sigh of relief. One of the tricks I picked up over the months of suffering with Charles Bonnet syndrome is to break the line of vision towards whichever stimulus is causing my brain to interpret the images into the hallucination. Think of it like restarting a faulty computer, how refreshing the system debugs it. To this end, I close my eyes and count to 5, and then when I reopen them, the hallucination is gone. So, as I stared at the horrifying, malformed figure in my kitchen, I knew that to make the image go away, I simply had to close my eyes. I'll be honest here. When I counted to 5, I hesitated a little before opening my eyes. If I'd opened my eyes and she'd still been stood there, smiling that wicked smile at me, I think I might have had a heart attack. She wasn't, and I breathed another long sigh of relief, fetched my glass of water, and went back to bed. The tall woman haunted my thoughts in the days after I saw her. She was different to the other visions I had. Somehow she felt more real. It was this agitation that my buddy Jason picked up on when we went for lunch the following Friday. Jason was one of the same friends I tried to drive away shortly after I lost my vision, yet he refused to give up on me, continuing to get in touch week after week. Good friends are hard to come by, but great friends, the ones who will be by your side for life, are even rarer. Jason, God bless his kind heart, is one of the latter. You've got to tell me what's going on, dude, he said, as we sat down over pizza. What do you mean? I asked, trying to brush it off. You're so distracted. It's like you're looking for something in here all the time. You've eaten like 1 slice of pizza in the time it's taken me to eat 4. So I repeat, you've got to tell me what's going on, Jason said, waving a slice of pizza around for emphasis. It's nothing, I replied, feeling a little stupid. I just had a hallucination a couple of nights ago that really got to me. I thought you were cool on these now, he asked, putting the pizza slice down. Yeah, I am. I mean, I was. But this was different, I replied, resigned to talking about it. She scared me. She? Jason asked, his interest clearly piqued. Tell me about it. So I did. I described the tall woman and how she'd appeared to me. I explained that, unlike any of my other hallucinations, she felt more real, and that she was first to feature such a weird and unsettling mutation. Sure, I'd seen similar visions of people in the past, a phenomenon referred to as Lilliputian by medical professionals, but the extra appendage and impossibly distorted face was something I had yet to encounter thus far. I think it was that, combined with the unnerving, expectant stance, that had disturbed me the most. So, Jason said after I'd finished, so you say she has great legs? Shut up, you asshole, I laughed, throwing my napkin at him. No, seriously, I get it, man, Jason replied, passing the napkin back to me. If I walked into a room and a giant mutant was waiting for me, it'd scare the shit out of me too. Hell, I'd probably piss my pants. But you know what caused you to see this. It's like the coachman or the waterfall you saw. It's a condition that you know you have, and it's one that you know how to deal with, okay? I know, I replied. Look, thanks, man, you're right. I did feel better too, so I smiled at him. I took a big bite of my pizza and changed the subject, asking him about his Psycho X, a conversation that he was all too happy to dive into. The next time I saw the tall woman was just under a week later. I was brushing my teeth. I was stood at the wash basin brushing away when I spotted the figure in the mirror. She was out in the dark hallway, peeking around the door behind me. The same sinister grin I'd seen before stretched her narrow face into a distorted grimace, the dirty bowler hat pushed down over her eyes once again. Each of these 3 long, spidery hands gripping the door frame. As crazy as it sounds, it felt like she was trying to avoid being spotted. I cried out, spitting toothpaste foam all over the mirror, my toothbrush clattering into the basin. I spun around, my heart thumping in my chest, my breathing ragged in my throat. She wasn't there. Of course she wasn't. The doorway was empty. I tiptoed forward hesitantly, trying to look around the doorframe into the hallway without actually sticking my neck out into its shadowy confines. The seconds ticked by as I drew closer and closer. I couldn't see anything, so finally, with a whisper of self-affirmation, I stepped out of the bathroom. The hallway was empty, as was the rest of my apartment. I was shaken again. This was the first time I'd seen a hallucination in a reflection, and I wasn't even sure that I'd actually seen it. Now, as I sit here writing this, knowing what would follow, I think I thought that I'd tried to protect myself, to shield myself from the truth. I was an idiot. A full fortnight passed without incident. Sure, I saw a flash of colour one day, a dancing yellow lightning bolt that zigzagged back and forth on the street outside my apartment, but that was exactly the sort of thing I'd come to expect from my condition. It was exciting, otherworldly, but it wasn't scary. Not like she was. In retrospect, that fortnight was blissful. It was a reminder of what life could be like, the existence that I'd carved out for myself since my diagnosis. And life was good. The night that changed the way that I viewed the tall woman, last night, I'd been out and had a couple of drinks. I met the other guys with visual impairment for dinner, and we'd ended up at a bar afterwards. I wasn't hammered, but we got through plenty of beer between us, and by the time I stepped out into the cool night air, I felt decidedly lightheaded. It took me a while to make it home, laughing and talking to a couple of the guys from our group as we strolled along. It had been a great evening. It's probably the last truly good one I'll ever have. I bid the other guys good night, fumbling with my key, and I let myself in. With swaying steps, I strolled into my hallway, slamming the door a little too loudly behind me. I took off my jacket, hung it on the hook by the door, and then hit the light switch. She was waiting at the end of the hallway. All 3 hands held aloft into claws, reaching out for me. That same maddening, malevolent grin on her pale face. I swore again, louder than ever, actually jumping a step back, recoiling from the impossibly tall and terrifying figure lying in wait in my own home. The tall woman didn't move. She just stood there, staring and smiling at me. I stared back, but I sure as hell didn't smile. Jesus Christ, I muttered under my breath. You know how you feel a little paranoid after a few beers? That feeling of non-specific post-alcohol dread? Imagine that combined with a giant, grinning mutant woman suddenly appearing in your home. Suffice it to say, it was very, very, very uncool. I don't need this, I sighed, and closed my eyes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I opened my eyes, her face was just a foot away from my own, grinning wider than ever. She dashed the length of the hallway and was now stood so close that her long, grasping arms were either side of me, her fingers twitching and clawing at the air around my face. I could see her chest heaving, as if she were actually laughing silently at my attempts to dismiss her. As if the thought that I could ever be free from her was amusing. I screamed, a full-body shriek of terror, and actually dropped to my knees, covering my head as if to fend off an expected blow. But it never came. Finally, I lowered my hands, grasping for breath, shaking, and the hallway was empty. The tall woman was nowhere to be seen. I stayed there, on my knees for a moment, gasping for breath. Then I was on my feet, and I turned and ran, out of the apartment, out of the building, and into the street. I stood there shivering, terrified beyond reason, without a clue as to what I'd do next. Finally, I pulled my phone out of my pocket and made a phone call. "Hey, Andy, what's up?" Jason asked. "Jason, I need you to come here," I said, sobbing. Jason didn't ask why, didn't complain. Instead, he simply said, I'm on my way." Less than 20 minutes later, his car pulled up outside and he dashed over to the steps outside my building where I was sitting, shivering. He threw his jacket around my shoulders and asked what happened, his voice filled with concern. "She's in there," I stammered. "The tall woman. She's back." Okay, he said gently, helping me to my feet. "Come on, man. Let's go in there and check it out." I wish I could say I was brave when we went inside, but I'd be lying. I cowered behind Jason, one hand on his shoulder as we made our way through my home. Of course we didn't find a thing. We're talking a giant mutant woman in a poky little one-bed apartment. Where the hell was she going to hide? Finally, after we checked every single room twice, I had to admit that she was gone. "I'm sorry, man," I apologized, feeling genuinely stupid. I got scared and... "I'm sorry, man. Hey, forget about it, buddy," Jason said. "So, I'm here now. Where do you keep your booze?" Half a bottle of bourbon later, we were both feeling pretty talkative. She's different, I tried to explain. I get it, he said. "It's like you saw something bad and you feel bad, and that's bad." He didn't get it. "No, she's different, I explained. "I've never had a repeat hallucination before. And they've never been scary, She's not like the others." "Dude," Jason said, taking another sip of bourbon, "you've got, Charlie Boney syndrome, that makes you see shit." So he waved his hands in the air like a magician who just performed a magic trick. I know, I replied. "No, listen, Andy," he said. It makes you see shit. It's just your eyes, yeah? You didn't see anything. You didn't feel anything. This is how that stuff goes. It's your eyes. I know it's scary, man, but you've been through, hell and high water in your life so far. You're tough. You're one of the toughest, bravest guys I know. And you can handle some creepy hallucination, bitch." I laughed. I couldn't help it. She is a very creepy hallucination bitch, though, dude. He laughed too, and we both took a drink. That could help," he said finally, a voice thoughtful. "Why, what, drinking?" I asked. "No, well, yeah, it does," he giggled. "I mean, demystifying her. You should give her a name, something stupid so she's not scary." I've got to say that as much as I like creepy hallucination bitch, that's a bit of a mouthful, I laughed. "Yeah, I get that," he replied. And suddenly something he'd said came back to me. "How about Helen?" I suggested. "Helen Highwater." "Awesome," he said, and raised his glass. "Here's to Helen, buddy." "To Helen," I smiled and drained my glass. Jason spent the night on my sofa, mainly because he'd had too much to drink to even think about getting behind the wheel of a vehicle, but honestly, I think the reason he drank so much was so he'd have an excuse to stay and keep an eye on me. I'm glad that he did. Knowing he was there made me feel safer, and I was able to get some sleep. It gave me a sense of security to know that if the strange vision I'd christened Helen was to appear again, I'd be able to call on him for support. This morning, we both needed support. Oh, it's like a mule kicked me in the head, he groaned, when I made my way into the living room. Yep, I replied, my own head thumping. Joe's, he replied firmly, and staggered to his feet. As we drank strong black coffee and ate muffins, we didn't talk much. Finally, Jason broke the silence. So you feel cool now? He asked, his mouth still full of blueberry muffin. I nodded. Yeah, I think so. Not still freaked out about you-know-who? He asked. Helen, I replied with a smile. No, I really think I am. I reckon I can handle some creepy hallucination, bitch. Good, he laughed, giving me a hearty pat on the back. That's cool, man. I bet you can. Now, after a night cowering in my bathroom, too scared to go out into my apartment, I know we were both wrong. About everything. Remember how I told you that I thought... Remember how earlier I told you that the thought of being institutionalized, that very idea of losing my grasp on reality, was the most terrifying thing I could imagine? Now I'd welcome that, because the alternative is far, far worse. After breakfast, I said goodbye to Jason, and he climbed into his car and drove away. The day passed without incident, and when Lois stopped by this afternoon, she even commented on how upbeat I seemed. You got a lady in your life? She asked casually. I laughed at that, wondered what she'd think if she knew the truth. Yeah, I chuckled, something like that. Good for you, she sniffed. You make sure you treat her right. That tickled me even more. I had to bite my lip. Sure, I replied. I'll do my best. Tonight, still a little wiped from the exertions of the previous evening, I decided to turn in early. I brushed my teeth, washed my hands and face, and got changed. Finally, I fetched a glass of water and walked into my bedroom. I climbed into bed and instantly felt so relaxed. Within mere seconds, I was ready to sleep. That sudden, overwhelming drowsiness that comes when you've spent a whole day keeping sleep at bay. I decided that resistance was futile and sat up to switch off the light. I nearly didn't see her. But as I reached for the light switch, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye. My heart leapt into my throat as I turned to the foot of my bed. The tall woman was crouching there, her grinning face staring at me from just beyond my feet. So many teeth. Her long, slender fingers spread out over my blankets, twitching slightly as she gripped the end of the bed. Slowly, excruciatingly so. Her third misshapen arm came into view over her shoulder, joining her other hands on my bedding. I froze, utterly petrified. I was at a crossroads here, arriving at a pivotal moment that had been coming for some time. She watched me, grinning, as if she was waiting to see what I'd do, cruel amusement flickering across her pale face. But this time I'd had enough. You don't scare me anymore, I said, my voice filled with defiance and anger. I'm not letting you do this to me. I reached across to the light switch. Good night, Helen, I said triumphantly, then flicked it, plunging the room into darkness. I laid there, a sense of tremendous pride surging through me, and I grinned to myself in my warm, comfortable bed, overjoyed at the emotional victory of overcoming my own fear. And then it happened. The thing that led me here. Something that turned my blood to ice water, my bowels to jelly. Good night, Andrew, her rasping voice hissed from the darkness. Well, chat. Well, that is a pretty interesting tale of woe from the r/NoSleep subreddit, written by Mr. Stuff 8 years ago. Thank you for listening to this story of Charles Bonnet syndrome. I hope you've enjoyed these Reddit reads. If you have, remember to give the video a like. And please, keep liking the video. Even if you're watching this in the VOD, the likes really do mean something, and they mean a lot to me. If, of course, you're new and you want to hear more of these scary stories, then why not hit the subscribe button? Because we do this every Tuesday here on the Mikey Scamp channel. And if you want to find me elsewhere, you can find me at Mikey Scamp all over the place. Of course, we have a Discord. It's full of wonderful people. If you'd like to join the Discord, there'll be a link in the chat somewhere. And alternatively, if you don't want to join the Discord, that's absolutely fine. We'll see you back here. If you're a recent channel member, remember to check out the members-only content because you have earned it. And chat, thank you very much for watching. Thank you, of course, to all of my mods for coming to moderate and making sure we keep the community safe. And I will see you on the usual Sunday stream for more fun and antics in Expedition 33. Until then, chat, I wish you goodbye and I wish you good night. From wherever you may be in the world, from me to you. And remember, chat, if you have Charles Bonnet syndrome, nothing is safe, nothing is sacred, and Helen is everywhere. Good night.